I deeply regret donating my kidney to my father. He hasn't changed his abusive behavior at all. I never thought I'd say this, but I regret donating my kidney to my father. I, a 27-year-old, gave up an organ to save my dad's life, and he's still the same abusive, ungrateful man he always was. Now I'm left with a scar, one less kidney, and a heart full of bitterness. This is going to be long, and I'm sorry if it's all over the place. My emotions are raw, and I'm not a great storyteller, but I'll try to lay it out. Some background. My father, 55M, has been an abusive presence in my life for as long as I can remember. He was an angry, controlling parent. Growing up, I walked on eggshells around him. He'd explode over the smallest things. My room being a little messy, me making too much noise, or just looking at him the wrong way. His abuse was mostly verbal. Insults, yelling, belittling. But on a few occasions, it got physical. He slapped me across the face when I was 13 for talking back. He once shoved me into a wall so hard I got a nosebleed because I got a B- on a math test, and he expected all A's. Those are just a couple examples. There's years of this stuff. My mom tried to protect me where she could, but she was also a victim of his abuse. He controlled everything. Our finances, where we went, who we saw. He isolated us, especially my mom. I have a younger sister, now 22F, who somehow was spared the worst of his wrath. Maybe I was the scapegoat, I don't know. Dad could be charming to others, and in public he acted like a devoted father and husband. But behind closed doors, we lived in fear of his mood swings. I moved out at 18 for university, and basically stayed away as much as I could. I would come home for short visits on holidays, mostly to see my mom and sister, but even those visits were tense. As an adult, I set some boundaries. I told him if he ever laid a hand on anyone again, I'd cut contact or call the police. He actually laughed at me and said I was being dramatic, that it was all in the past. It wasn't. He was still verbally cruel whenever I was around, just not physical, since I was bigger by then and could stand my ground a bit more. I nearly went no contact multiple times, but every time I'd work up the courage, something pulled me back. Mostly my mom's pleas not to abandon the family, or my own stupid hope that maybe with time he'd mellow out. Spoiler, he didn't. Fast forward to 2 years ago. My father's health started to fail. Years of heavy drinking, yep. He drank a lot, which made his anger worse. And untreated diabetes wrecked his kidneys. He ended up on dialysis and was told he needed a kidney transplant or he wouldn't last more than a couple of years. I wasn't living at home, but my mom kept me updated. Despite everything, hearing that my dad was that sick it was a punch to the gut. Part of me felt terrified. He's still my dad, and the idea of him dying was scary and sad despite all the pain he caused. And part of me felt this ugly little flicker of relief. Like, would the pain finally end? I hated myself for that thought. He was put on a transplant list, but finding a matching donor can take a long time. Meanwhile, he was getting weaker, sicker. My mom was a wreck, trying to take care of him and work, and also not fall apart. My sister was in college, living at home and helping where she could, but she was also in denial about how bad things were. At first, I didn't even consider being a donor. Why would I? This man had made my life hell. I owed him nothing beyond, I guess, the fact that he provided for us financially growing up. Though he lorded that over us at every turn. I put a roof over your head, you owe me respect, that kind of thing. But as the months went by, the chances of him getting a kidney in time seemed to shrink. No one in our extended family was a match or willing. A couple were tested. My mom wasn't a match, and my sister has a medical condition that made her ineligible. It was like this unspoken cloud hanging over us. Would I step up? My mom never outright asked me. She knew better, I think. Maybe she felt it was wrong to ask, given how he treated me. But I could see it in her eyes, the desperate hope. My father, for his part, was oddly humble during this time. Or as close to humble as he could get. He didn't ask me either, but when I'd visit, he'd make these comments like, "It's too bad you and I have different blood types." "Oh wait, we don't, huh?" Or, "A real man would do anything to save his family." These little passive-aggressive comments, half in jest, half not. He never outright said, "Give me your kidney," but the implication was there. He even once actually apologized. Kind of. One night, after a bad dialysis session, he was feeling weak and vulnerable. He said to me, "I know I wasn't the best father. I made mistakes. But I always did love you, in my own way." I remember just sitting there, speechless. It was the closest thing to an apology or admission of guilt I'd ever heard from him. I think he could sense I was moved, because he then said, "If I get through this, I promise I'll make things right between us." That did it. I wrestled for days, but I couldn't get those words out of my head. Was this finally it? The turning point where he'd change? Where we could maybe have something like a normal relationship? I felt guilty for even hesitating. He's my father. And my mom? God, my mom looked so broken and tired. If he died, I worried it might literally kill her from grief and guilt and what-ifs. My sister, too, would be devastated. She still had a bit of a daddy's girl relationship with him. He treated her better, and she somehow managed to love him wholeheartedly anyway. I went to get tested to see if I could be a donor. I didn't tell anyone at first. Part of me was hoping I wouldn't be a match, so the choice would be out of my hands. But life is ironic. I was a perfect match. The doctor said I was healthy enough and could donate if I was willing. I took a week to think, knowing that each passing week my dad was getting worse. I had nightmares about it, about something going wrong during surgery, about regretting it, about saving him and him not changing at all. I talked to a therapist, secretly, who told me I had to do what I could live with. And what I kept coming back to was, if I didn't do it and he died, could I live with that on my conscience? I wasn't sure I could. Despite everything, he's my dad. And maybe, just maybe, this would be what it took for him to finally soften and see me as a person, not a punching bag. So I did it. I told my family I'd do it. My mom burst into tears of relief and hugged me so hard. My sister actually laughed and cried at the same time and said I was her hero. And my dad. The strangest thing happened. When I told him, he just went quiet. Then he started bawling. I had never, ever seen my father cry like that. He was always so hard and angry. He held my hand and said, "Thank you, son. You're saving my life. I won't forget it." And then he actually said, "I'm sorry for everything. I mean it. I'm going to be a better father. I swear on my life." I believed him. In that moment, seeing this broken, sick man, tears on his face for the first time. I believed him. The transplant surgery was about 1.5 years ago. It went smoothly, medically speaking. They took my left kidney and put it in him. We each had our own surgical team. I remember lying on the gurney before anesthesia and just praying this wasn't the biggest mistake of my life. I kept thinking about an old memory. When I was 8, he shoved me into our pool to teach me how to swim, and I floundered, thinking I'd drown, until my mom screamed at him and pulled me out. He'd laughed and said, "That's how my dad taught me." Why did my brain go there? I guess part of me was still that scared kid, hoping I wasn't about to drown myself for him. I woke up in a lot of pain, but the first thing I heard was that my dad had come through surgery and was stable. I felt a flood of relief, and surprisingly, a feeling of peace. Like maybe this was the start of something good. Recovery was rough. I had complications. An infection at my incision site, so I was in the hospital longer than expected. My dad was actually recovering faster than me. Mom told me he kept asking about me, if I was okay. He even shuffled down the hall, against nurse's orders, to visit me in my room one day. He looked weak, but he gave me a thumbs up and said, "We did it." I teared up, and he actually sat by my bed and put a hand on my shoulder. It wasn't much, but for us, it was a world of emotion. When we both got home, I stayed at my parents' place for a couple weeks because I needed help, and my mom insisted on taking care of me while also caring for him. Things were cautiously good. He was weaker than before, obviously, and on a bunch of anti-rejection meds, but he was alive, and the kidney was working. He thanked me constantly those first weeks. This is wild, he even made me breakfast one morning. I woke up to my dad cooking eggs and toast for me, as a thank you. My mom was glowing. She was so happy seeing him being kind. I thought, maybe he really did change. Maybe facing death humbled him. Maybe my sacrifice opened his eyes. That honeymoon period lasted maybe 2 months. At first it was little things. If I didn't take my post-surgery meds or did my breathing exercises, he'd nag. Which was fine, kinda sweet even, him caring. But then he started complaining about stuff around the house. I was still staying there to help out a bit as I regained my strength and as he got back on his feet. I remember about 3 months post-surgery I had started working remotely again, and he snapped at me for lounging around on my laptop while Mom did chores. I explained I was working, and he scoffed like he didn't believe me. That hurt. Like, really? Back to that old song, that I'm lazy or something? I just saved your life, man. Then came the drinking. Yes, you'd think getting a new kidney would be motivation to take care of it. The doctors were very clear. No alcohol for at least a year. And even then, only light drinking very occasionally. Well, around month 4 or 5, I caught him sneaking some whiskey into his coffee. I was flabbergasted. I confronted him, saying, "Are you kidding me? You're drinking? You know you're not supposed to." And he got defensive. "I'm an adult in my own house, don't you dare lecture me." That turned into our first big post-transplant fight. I yelled that he was disrespecting my gift to him, that if he kills his new kidney with booze, that's like spitting in my face. He yelled back that I was overstepping, that I'd given up the right to tell him how to live his life after I moved out at 18. Twisted logic. I guess saving his life doesn't entitle me to have an opinion on him not destroying that life. He did back off the drinking after that fight, or at least got better at hiding it from me, but it was a red flag. Still, I hoped it was a one-off, that maybe he was just having a bad day. Then, one evening I came home. I had finally gone back to my own apartment by then, about 6 months post-surgery, but I visited often to check on him, and I heard him yelling at my mom. Loud, angry shouts. The kind that still make my stomach knot. I rushed in and found him berating her for some minor thing. She bought the wrong type of milk, I think. She was on the verge of tears, saying it was the milk he always drinks, and he was accusing her of trying to make him sicker with the crap she buys. It was insane. I instinctively jumped in and said, "Hey, don't talk to Mom like that." He turned and gave me this death glare. And you know what he said? "This is between me and my wife. Butt out! Just because you gave me a kidney doesn't make you the king of the house." I was stunned. I hadn't said anything about the kidney. I was just defending my mom from his abuse. I told him he was out of line, and he completely blew up at me, swearing, telling me to get the hell out of his house, that I have no right to judge him. Mom was begging him to stop, and he yelled at her to shut up. It was chaos. I left, shaking with anger and hurt. On my way out, I shouted something like, "I gave you a second chance at life and this is what you do with it?" And he yelled back, "I didn't ask for your damn kidney." That, right there, was like a knife to the heart. Technically true. He never outright asked, but he knew exactly what he was doing when he manipulated me into offering. And now he was throwing it in my face. After that incident, I didn't speak to him for a couple of weeks. I just checked in with Mom and Sis. Mom was apologetic on his behalf, as usual, saying he was going through a lot, the meds make his moods weird, etc. The same old excuses. Sis was more upset at him this time. I think seeing him treat me like that after what I did really opened her eyes. Eventually, Dad called me. I almost didn't answer. When I did, he didn't exactly apologize. He said in a gruff way, "You coming over for your mom's birthday? Don't let our last little spat keep you from the family." Like, just pretending everything was normal. I should have said no, but it was my mom's birthday, and I didn't want him to ruin that for her by me not being there. So I went. It was awkward but civil at first. Dad was on his best behavior in front of the extended family, of course. You know, acting the part of the grateful recovered man with a new lease on life. Everyone kept congratulating him on how well he looked and praising me for what I did. It was weird, like this big elephant in the room, because I knew the truth, that he hadn't really changed. But I plastered on a smile. Later that night, after everyone left, we were cleaning up. Just me, Mom, Sis, and Dad. Dad made a snide comment about a gift someone gave Mom. Something like, "Trust your sister to gift something cheap." Just unnecessary rudeness. Mom told him to hush, that it was a nice gift. Dad rolled his eyes. I couldn't hold my tongue and quietly said, "Was that comment really needed?" He heard that and something in him snapped. He barked. "What did you say to me?" And he went off. "You think just because you're the family hero now you can criticize me? You don't get to judge me, boy. I'm still your father." I shot back. "Being my father didn't stop you from treating me like garbage my whole life. I thought nearly dying and me saving you might change things, but you're still the same bitter old man." Time froze for a second after I said that. My mom gasped softly and my sister's eyes went wide. My dad's face turned red. I thought he might literally burst a blood vessel. He stormed up to me, getting in my face. For a second I really thought he might hit me. Part of me almost wanted him to, just so it would be clear to everyone what kind of man he still is. Instead, he growled out, "Get out! You are not welcome here. You think you're better than me. That kidney doesn't buy you a free pass to disrespect your father." I was shaking, adrenaline pumping. I looked to my mom and sister. Mom was crying quietly. Sis looked torn. I just nodded and said, "Fine, I'm done trying." And I left. That was 6 months ago. Since then, my contact with him has been minimal. He certainly hasn't reached out with any apologies. Occasionally he'll send a group text with family updates like nothing happened. Stuff about his doctor appointments or some home project he's doing. Yes, he's healthy enough now to do DIY projects, which I'm glad for his health, I guess. I usually don't respond. If I visit home, it's when I know he's out, or I just meet my mom elsewhere. My mom begs me not to give up on him. She says he's been better, mostly, whatever that means, since our fight, and that he misses me, even if he won't say it. She also slipped in that he's been going to therapy at the kidney clinic. They require some psych sessions for transplant patients. I doubt he's actually doing real therapy work, but who knows? She thinks I should talk to him, maybe that we both said things we didn't mean. But see, the thing is, I did mean it. I deeply regret giving him my kidney. Not because I wanted something in return. I didn't expect a ticker tape parade or to be sainted. But I did expect, I don't know, basic decency, gratitude, a willingness to change. At least towards me and my mom and sister. Instead, he's just slipped back into his old ways, as if nothing happened. As if I didn't literally put my life on the line for him. I wake up every day, see the scar on my abdomen, and it just makes me so angry. Angry at him for being who he is, and angry at myself for being naive enough to think my love, or sacrifice, could fix him. I feel like an idiot. I feel used. There's also this grim thought I have sometimes, that maybe he's right. Maybe he didn't ask for my kidney, and I gave it hoping for something that will never come. That maybe I did it more for my own need for approval, or to not feel guilty, rather than for him. And that just makes me feel gross and confused. And then I feel guilty for feeling this way at all. I did save a life. That's supposed to be a good thing, right? People say, oh, you did a wonderful thing. But it doesn't feel wonderful. It feels like I've been robbed of something. Not just the organ, but of the hope or the narrative I had in my head of what this could be. Sometimes I have nightmares that something goes wrong with my remaining kidney and I end up on dialysis, and he doesn't even care. Or worse, he laughs and says I got what I deserve. That's how messed up my head is over this. To be fair, physically I'm fine now. I have one kidney and my doctors say everything looks good for me. My dad is also physically doing well. My kidney is functioning perfectly for him. Oh, the irony. The kidney is doing its job. He's just not doing his. Health-wise, we're both success stories. But emotionally, it's a wreck. I haven't told many people about this. My best friend knows some, and she's furious on my behalf. But all she can really do is listen and tell me I'm not crazy for feeling how I feel. My father and I are basically estranged now, aside from short, tense interactions on holidays, or if I stop by and he happens to be home. I keep those as brief as possible. Recently, at Easter, he actually had the gall to boast to a relative about how my son gave me the gift of life and blah blah, making it sound like we're so close. I wanted to vomit. He hasn't said a sincere word of appreciation to me in ages, but he loves the attention he gets from my donation story. I'm at a point where I'm considering fully cutting him off. But that has its own complications. It would hurt my mom terribly, and I'd basically lose her too in a way because she's tethered to him. She's the one who would suffer daily without me around, stuck alone with him. My sister sides with me emotionally, but she still lives at home and isn't ready to cut ties either. She's trying to save money to move out. I regret it. I regret saving his life. How awful of a person does that make me? It's such a dark, heavy thing to admit. There are moments I wish I could go back in time and undo it, just so I wouldn't have to deal with this. This rejection of my gesture, not the organ, thankfully, and the continuation of his abuse. I feel like he's essentially said, thanks for the kidney, but you're still garbage to me. I haven't confronted him about my feelings directly since that fight, because what's the point? He doesn't listen, he turns everything around. If I say you hurt me, he'll say, you're too sensitive, or, after all I've been through, you're giving me grief. He'll make himself the victim, as he always does. I guess I'm writing this to vent and seek some kind of validation or advice. Is it normal to regret something like this? Has anyone else been in a similar situation? I feel like a monster for even thinking these thoughts. Who regrets saving someone's life? But when that someone is your abuser, it complicates things, to put it mildly. I also feel incredibly alone in this. I can't exactly go around telling people, I regret donating my kidney to my dad. Most would think I'm a terrible person. Or they'd say, just be proud you did the right thing, and ignore his behavior. It's not that simple when his behavior is directly affecting me and my family. Anyway, I'll stop here. This is already a novel. If you made it this far, thanks for reading. I'm just sitting here with my scar, my anger, and a whole lot of confusion about where to go from here. No matter what, I know I can't get my kidney back. And I'm starting to accept I'll never really get the dad I hoped for either. Both are gone for good. No happy ending here yet. I'm just trying to figure out how to live with what I did and what I can't change. Update 1. Update posted 3 months after the original post. Hello again. I didn't expect to be back with an update, but a lot has happened since my original post and I need to get it off my chest. First, I want to say thank you to everyone who commented or messaged me after my first post. I was stunned by the support and the number of people who understood or at least empathized with my feelings. It made me feel a little less like a monster for having regrets. I even connected with another person who went through something eerily similar with a family member, and knowing I'm not alone has been a lifeline these past few months. Now, on to what's happened. After I posted, I decided to pull back completely from my father for my own sanity. I told my mom and sister that I wouldn't be coming to the house if Dad was there, and I'd arranged to see them separately. Mom was upset but understood I needed space. I also started seeing my therapist more regularly to work through my anger and guilt. For a little while, that was that. I didn't see or speak to my father at all for weeks, then a month, then 2 months. We basically communicated through my mom as an intermediary, which is messed up, but it was what I needed. According to her, he noticed my absence and it did bother him, but predictably, he acted prideful about it. He apparently said things like, if he wants to act like a child, let him. I'm done chasing him. Chasing me? He hadn't done any chasing, but whatever. I focused on myself, my job, trying to heal mentally. The bitterness was still there, but at least I wasn't adding fuel by enduring new abuses from him. Then, about a month ago, something happened that forced an encounter. My father had a medical scare. Ironically, not directly kidney-related, but indirectly. He got a serious infection. Later found out it was a complication related to his immunosuppressant meds that he'll be on for life to keep my kidney. He apparently collapsed at home with a high fever and was rushed to the hospital. It was bad. He went into septic shock and ended up in ICU. I got a call from my frantic mom at 2 a.m., crying that, Dad is in the hospital, it doesn't look good. My heart dropped. Despite everything, the thought of him dying still filled me with dread and sadness. I rushed to the hospital to be with my mom and sister. It was déjà vu to the transplant time, except now I was in the waiting room, with this heavy mix of worry and unresolved anger. I didn't know how to feel. Part of me was terrified he might die, and I'd never have a chance to. To what? Reconcile? Tell him off one last time? I wasn't even sure. He pulled through the worst of the infection after a couple of days. The doctors said it was close, though. He was sedated and intubated for a bit, but they managed to control the infection. I was at the hospital a lot, supporting my mom and sister. I also felt that old protective instinct. I didn't want them to go through this alone, even if I was mad at him. When he stabilized, they brought him out of sedation. The first time he was fully alert, it was just me and Mom in the ICU. Mom gently told him I was there, and I kind of hung back, unsure of my welcome. To my surprise, he croaked, his voice was weak, that he wanted to talk to me alone. Mom looked hesitant, but I nodded and she left us. I stood by his bedside. He looked awful, weak, pale, tubes everywhere. Not the fearsome figure of my childhood. He gestured for water. I gave him a sip. Then he squeezed my hand. I had my hand on the rail, and in a strained voice said, "I guess you saved me twice now." I didn't know what to say. I think I muttered something like, "Just focus on getting better." Then he said, "I heard, you've been staying away." I said yes, I had been. He looked sad and said, "I don't blame you. I know I'm a bastard." That shocked me. My dad almost never swears in front of me like that, or calls himself out. He went on, haltingly, basically acknowledging that he's been a terrible father. He said something like, "I've spent my whole life angry. I hurt you. I know I did. I'm sorry." I just started crying. That's what I'd wanted to hear my whole life, and especially these past months, but hearing it felt overwhelming and honestly. Too late? I told him, "I was so angry at you." I still kind of am. He nodded and said he didn't blame me. He even said he admired me, that I had become a good man in spite of him. I was literally speechless. This might sound like the start of a Hallmark reconciliation, but it's not so simple. He was crying, I was crying, and he asked me to forgive him, and in that moment, I said I did. But walking out of that room, I felt more confusion than relief. Because I've been here before, not quite this explicitly, but I've seen him seem remorseful when he was weak, and then revert to form when he recovered. He was in the hospital for another week. During that time, he was very tried. Gentle. Grateful. He even asked for a hospital therapist to come talk to us as a family one morning. That was actually the therapist's suggestion, I think, but he agreed. We had a mediated conversation where he again took responsibility for a lot of his abuse and said he wants to change, and that he's ashamed of how he treated us, especially me after the transplant. He admitted he was wrong to lash out, and that he was a fool who didn't deserve a second chance. I said a lot of things I needed to say, about how badly he hurt me over the years, how his broken promises after the transplant felt like a second betrayal. I told him how much I regretted giving him my kidney because it felt like he wasted the opportunity it gave us. That made him break down again, saying I had every right to feel that way, and that he's sorry I've been carrying that regret. My mom and sister were part of this talk too. Mom mostly cried and said she wanted us to heal. Sister vented a bit about how his behavior affected her too, though she had less to say than me. By the end of that session, I was emotionally drained. The therapist cautioned us that while this was a positive step, the real work would be ongoing and tough, and we'd all need to be patient and honest. I think she sensed our skepticism, or at least mine. So Dad gets discharged. He's weak, gonna need IV antibiotics for a while, and regular checkups. I found myself in a weird position, wanting to believe he meant what he said, but also waiting for the other shoe to drop. We all went back to our lives, but with this tentative hope that maybe things could be different. For a few weeks it was. He was like a different person at home. Soft-spoken, grateful for every little thing, thanking my mom for caring for him, encouraging my sister with her plans to move out, instead of guilt-tripping her as he used to. He'd call me just to say hi and tell me he loved me. He even, and this was big, he even voluntarily started talking about going to AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, for his drinking, and looking into regular therapy beyond the mandatory transplant counseling. It was like all my dreams coming true, but I was scared to trust it. Then, about 2 weeks ago, I went to dinner at my parents'. First time in a long time I felt okay doing that. It was me, Mom, Dad. Sis was out with friends. Dad was in a good mood, making jokes, thanking Mom for the meal. I thought maybe, just maybe, we'd turned a corner. After dinner, Dad asked me to help him in the garage with something. Some old appliance he wanted to move. We were in there alone, moving this dusty old freezer, when he said out of the blue, "I talked to Pastor Mike the other day." He meant the pastor from our old church we attended when I was a kid. I was like, oh, that's nice. Then Dad says, he told me God's been testing me, and I think he's right. I sort of nodded, not sure where this was going. Then my dad says something like, God gave me a new kidney, and then nearly took me with that infection, to teach me to appreciate life. And to appreciate you, I responded that I'm glad he's seeing things differently. And then, he puts his hand on my shoulder and says, I also realized God gave me a piece of you, literally, your kidney, so that you'll always be a part of me. It's like we share a soul now, son. This might sound touching, but the way he said it gave me a weird feeling. It's hard to explain, but it felt like he was staking some kind of claim over me. I just said something like, I guess in a way. He then went on to talk about how this experience has bonded us, and how he expects us to be close now. No more of this not talking. We're going to be father and son again, the way it should be. You'll be here for weekly dinners and we'll go fishing like we used to. For the record, we only went fishing a few times when I was like 10, and I mostly remember him getting mad I couldn't bait the hook right. He was smiling, but it felt, off. Like it wasn't a question or a hope, it was a directive. I said I'd love to spend more time together, but I'd still be living my own life. And then I gently mentioned that while I'm happy we're talking, I am still working through a lot of hurt. I said, Dad, I want this to be a fresh start, but I can't pretend everything's instantly okay. I need to see that these changes are real and lasting. His face flickered with anger for just a split second. That old familiar scowl. But then he forced a smile and said, Of course. It'll take time. I understand. We left it at that. I went home feeling uneasy. My therapist warned me about this, that abusers can manipulate even the narrative of, I've changed, to still control you. I was getting slight whiffs of that, like him saying we share a soul, and talking to the pastor about God's plan. It was like he was trying to frame this whole thing as a grand story of redemption, where we all had to play our parts. The next incident removed some of my doubt that his change might not be entirely genuine. My sister called me last week, upset. She had gotten into an argument with Dad because she had gone out to a bar with friends and came home late. She still lives at home to save money. Dad, in his concerned father mode, scolded her about how dangerous it is and how she's living under his roof, so she should respect his rules, like coming home by midnight. This is something he used to do a lot. Try to control our movements, even as adults, and he hadn't done it since the hospital. Sis told him that she's an adult, and he doesn't get to impose a curfew on her just because she's staying with them. According to her, he raised his voice, got that stern tone, and said if she can't follow his rules, she can move out now instead of next year. It didn't escalate further. Apparently he backed off and later almost apologized by saying, I worry, that's all. But it was enough that my sister called me, rattled, saying, I think Dad's slipping back. I told her to stand her ground and that I support her. This seemed small compared to past blow-ups, but it was a sign. And it made me realize that I'm kind of waiting for him to slip. I don't fully trust this new dad. Part of me feels guilty about that. Like, if I don't believe someone can change, why did I give him the chance in the first place? But the other part of me is protecting myself, and my sister, and Mom. Here's the kicker. I realize that even if my father truly turns over a new leaf from here on out, I still regret giving him my kidney. Because that decision, that sacrifice, wasn't made with informed consent in a sense. I offered it under false hope, almost under duress of emotions. And no matter what he does now, I have to live with the fact that I gave a vital piece of myself to someone who, for the first 6 months after the transplant, treated me like dirt. Those months broke something in me, and an apology, or even a changed behavior now can't undo that pain, or the fact that I have a permanent physical reminder of it. Don't get me wrong, I am glad if he is genuinely trying to reform. For my mom and sister's sake, and even for him, no one is beyond redemption. I want to believe. But I realize that my healing is separate from his. Whether he becomes Father of the Year or goes back to being a total jerk, I have a lot to work through. Which leads to the last major thing. I finally decided to move farther away. I've been living about 30 minutes from my parents. I got an opportunity through my job to relocate to another city a few hours away with a promotion. I decided to take it. It feels a bit like running away, but also like taking back my life. I haven't told my dad yet. I told my mom and sister, and they were supportive. Mom was sad but understood it might be good for me to have space. Sis was outright encouraging, saying I deserve to live my life without this constant weight. I plan to tell Dad soon, maybe this coming weekend, that I'm moving. I have no idea how he'll take it. If he's truly changed, he'll be supportive and happy for me, even if a bit sad. If he hasn't, well, I suspect there'll be guilt trips or anger, but I'm preparing myself emotionally for either reaction. In a way, it will be a litmus test. So that's where I am. Not a neat, tidy ending by any means. My dad survived again, gave me some apologies, and shows some change, but I remain cautiously skeptical. We're in this weird limbo of trying to reconcile while I keep my guard up. I'm working on letting go of the anger for me, not for him, because carrying it only hurts me in the end. But regret, that's still there. Maybe not as blistering as before, but it lingers. I think it will, for a long time, maybe forever, even if our relationship improves. It's hard to forget what's been done. I'll likely update once more after I tell him about my move, as that might be a breaking point or a breakthrough, who knows. I just want to end this update by saying, if you're ever in a position where you're being asked or feel pressured to sacrifice a part of yourself, literally or figuratively, for someone who has harmed you, please remember your own well-being matters too. I'm learning that the hard way. Thank you for listening to my ongoing saga. Update 2. Final update posted 6 months after the second update. This will probably be my last update. A lot has happened in the past 6 months. Some good, some bad, mostly complicated. And I think it's time to close this chapter, at least as far as publicly sharing it. I'm already in my new city, far from home, trying to start fresh. Writing this out is as much for me as for anyone who followed along. To pick up where I left off, I planned to tell my dad about my decision to move for my job. I was nervous as hell about it. I ended up doing it one Sunday afternoon. I went over to my parents' house specifically to have that conversation. We sat down in the living room, and I just kind of gently broke the news that I got a promotion and I'd be relocating a few hours away in a month. My mom already knew, so she stayed quiet, letting us talk. My dad's initial reaction was a sort of stunned silence. Then he said, "Oh, wow, that's great, son." He tried to smile, but I could see the sadness or maybe disappointment in his eyes. He asked some questions about the job, the city. When I was leaving, I answered. He then cleared his throat and said, "I'm proud of you, I'll miss you." That actually choked me up a bit. I told him I'd miss them too, but it's a really good opportunity for me. He nodded and said he understood. For a moment I thought it was going to be completely fine. Then, as expected, a bit of guilt tripping slipped in, albeit in a mild way. He said, "I just worry, with my health and all. I was hoping to have you nearby, especially after everything." He wasn't hostile, more pitiful. It tugged at my heart, because I know beneath all his flaws, he is scared of dying or facing things without family around. But I held firm and just said, "I know, Dad, but I need to do this for me. And we'll still talk all the time. I can come visit." He tried to smile again and said, Yeah, of course. I can't hold you back. You've given me enough." That line had a bit of an edge to it, almost like a jab at himself or me. I'm not even sure. I think he realized it might have sounded off, because he then added, "I'm grateful for everything. I just wish I could rewind and done things better so you'd want to stay." That was heavy. I just said I wasn't moving to get away from him. I was moving for my life's progress, which was a half-truth. Honestly, getting distance is part of why I decided to go ahead with it. After that talk, things were okay. He didn't blow up or anything. In fact, over the next month before I moved, he was almost too on his best behavior, like saccharine sweet. It was nice, but it also made me a bit uneasy, like he was desperately trying to make me reconsider by being the perfect dad. He offered to help me pack. I declined politely, telling him I got it. He insisted on throwing a little send-off dinner for me with the family. I agreed, and it was actually a nice evening with no drama. He gave this mini speech at the table about how our family's been through a rough road and he's amazed at how strong I turned out and how he's the luckiest man to have been given life twice by me. It made everyone tear up. I felt a mix of hope and dread. Hope that he really means it, dread that it was a performance or something temporary. Anyway, I moved. I've been settling into my new place and job. It's been honestly liberating to be out of that environment. I love my mom and sister. She's planning to move out on her own soon too, which is great. And even my dad. Yes, I do love him despite everything. But being physically distant has lifted a weight I didn't fully realize was crushing me. I can breathe easier not waiting for the next confrontation or mood swing. At first, I called home every few days. It was mostly to talk to mom and sis. Sometimes dad would join or ask to speak to me. Those calls were short and pleasant. But as weeks went by, I found myself calling less frequently. Not out of malice, just. I was busy. And also, I liked focusing on my new life without being pulled back into the drama. Dad would text or leave voicemails like, "Haven't heard your voice in a while, hope you're okay." There was guilt in those messages, but I tried to ignore it and just call when I felt up to it. Here's where things took a turn. About 2 months into my move, I heard from my sister that Dad was back to drinking regularly. Like, not just sneaking a sip, full-on nightly beers or whiskey. My sister confronted him about it, reminding him of doctor's orders and how I'd feel if I knew. He apparently got snappy with her and told her to mind her own business. This worried me a lot. The idea of him trashing his health again, my kidney that's inside him, it made my blood boil and my heart break simultaneously. I called him that night. I straight up said I heard from sis he's been drinking and asked what's going on. He tried to downplay it. "Oh, I have a beer now and then. It's no big deal." I told him it is a big deal, that he's risking his health, and it feels like a slap in the face to me and my sacrifice. Well, he did not like that. He went from 0 to 60, defensive and irritated. He said, "I'm tired of walking on eggshells. I can have a damn beer in my own house." The doctor said moderate drinking after a year, and it's been nearly 2. I responded that moderate for a normal person might not apply to him given his history, and that he promised to take care of himself better. He then pulled the classic line, "I didn't ask you to give me a kidney, okay? You did that. I'm grateful, but it doesn't mean you own me or can control me." Hearing that again, after all this, was like a punch to the gut. I think I just went silent. He kept going, You have your own life now. You left. I'm here, dealing with things my way. I'm not getting drunk. I'm just having a little to feel normal. I softly said, Dad, I did it because I thought you wanted to live. To change. And I started crying, damn it. I tried not to, but I did. I then just said, please, you're going to hurt yourself. I don't want to watch you die because you couldn't give up beer. He kind of sighed, and his tone softened a bit, but he also sounded frustrated. I'm not going to die from a beer. Just stop. You're too emotional about this. I'm fine. We ended the call, not really resolved. I was an emotional wreck the rest of that night. It felt like every bit of progress or hope was just erased in an instant. Here we were, back to square one. Him minimizing. Me feeling powerless and regretful. It reinforced that even distance doesn't completely heal the wound. It just scabs it over until something picks at it again. After that, I took a step back. I decided to protect myself. I told my mom and sister that I needed some space and might not be calling for a while. I did, however, tell my mom what happened. She sighed and said she'd been trying to manage it, that Dad was sneaking drinks more. She promised to try to curb it, but she's so tired too. I told her to focus on herself and Sis and to be safe. Then about a month ago, the final, as of now, blow came. My dad sent me an email out of the blue. It started kind of formal, and my heart actually skipped thinking, oh no, is this some legal thing? Given what happened in story 1, ironically I got paranoid about legal letters, but no, it wasn't that. It was an email where he basically laid out his feelings in a way he doesn't do in person. It oscillated between self-pity, blame, and love in a weird way. He said he feels ever since I moved I've been drifting away, and he fears I'll never come back. He said he sometimes thinks I gave him the kidney just to abandon him and make him feel guilty. He said he's sorry he's not perfect and that he tried to change, but it's hard when he feels everyone's waiting for him to fail. That was a gut punch line, because it's partly true. I was waiting for him to fail. But I felt I had good reason after a lifetime of patterns. He said he feels lonely, and that I don't understand how scared he is of going back to how sick he was. He admitted he drinks because it numbs his anxiety, and that every day he's paranoid the kidney will fail or that I hate him. But then he also wrote, I sometimes wish you hadn't saved me, because it feels like I'm just living on borrowed time and everyone's resenting me for it. Reading that broke something in me. I had to step away and scream into a pillow, cry, all of it. Because in one sentence he summed up the darkness between us. I regret saving him, and he in some ways regrets being saved, or at least can't handle the weight of it. It's just so. Tragic, I guess. He ended the email saying he loves me despite everything, and he hopes I don't hate him and that I'll come home to visit soon because family is all we've got. I didn't respond to that email. I couldn't. What could I say? Everything I want to say feels pointless. I can't fix him. I can't trust him fully. I can't get my kidney or my innocence or whatever back. And I can't continue losing myself to this cycle of hope and disappointment. So I've made a decision that I haven't told him yet, and maybe won't explicitly. I'm going to stay low contact indefinitely. I will call on holidays. I will send cards. I will be respectful. But I cannot and will not emotionally invest myself in seeking his validation or change anymore. If he changes for himself, great. I truly hope he does for his own sake and for Mom and Sis. But I'm removing myself from the equation as much as possible. It hurts. God, it hurts. This isn't the happy ending where my donation led to a beautiful reconciliation. It's just reality. The reality is my father is a deeply flawed, likely mentally ill man. I suspect undiagnosed PTSD or something from his own past, not that it excuses anything. He loves me in his own way, and I love him in my own way, but it's a toxic kind of love that I need to keep at arm's length. I'm sharing this final part because I know some people wanted to see if things got better or worse. The answer is both, and neither. He got better, then worse, then better, then worse. It's a roller coaster that I'm choosing to step off of. Where does that leave me? Still with this scar on my body and soul. Still with regret, though I'm working through it. My therapist said something that sticks with me. You made the best decision you could with the information and feelings you had at the time. You hoped for a version of your father that maybe never truly existed. That hope isn't something to be ashamed of. It means you have a big heart. The regret you feel now isn't a sign you did wrong. It's a sign that you finally understand you deserved better. That gave me a bit of peace. I'm trying to reframe the narrative in my head. Instead of, I made a mistake, maybe, I acted out of love and it didn't turn out the way I hoped. And that's not my fault. Maybe one day I'll fully believe that.